The Incredibles 2 is another 10 plus years later sequel to a beloved Pixar classic that does not live up to the original at all. Picking up literally seconds after the events of the first film, the Underminer has popped up. Our family of superheroes is ready to fight them, even though superheroes are still technically illegal. So despite the superheroes' best efforts, the villain gets away, our superheroes get arrested, their government agency that helped them in the first movie is not able to help them now. The adult Incredibles and Frozen are approached by billionaire Winston Dever and his sister to try and bring supers back. They want to make them legal again. They want to do this by attaching body cams to their supersuits and displaying their public acts of good to the rest of the world. Elastigirl is their pick to try out this experiment at first, much to the chagrin of Mr. Incredible. Mr. Incredible now gets to play the role of stay-at-home dad instead of saving the world like he wants to do. So for 14 years, the writer-director of The Incredibles, Brad Bird, has stated that he would only do a sequel if he could come up with a story that would live up to the first movie. It really took him 14 years to come up with a weak role reversal of the first film. I'm sure the fact that this movie was announced after Brad Bird's last movie, Tomorrowland, horribly flopped is completely coincidental. It's basically the exact same plot as the first. Our super is brought back out of retirement to do some super jobs. They do this job for a shady billionaire, and the other super parent gets to stay at home and play stay-at-home parent. But then the super parent realizes things aren't quite right and go off to save the other parent. Yes, there is a lot of comedy scene to put upon Mr. Incredible, dealing with things like Dash's homework, Violet's boy troubles, Jack's burgeoning powers. But haven't we gotten over the men can't be as good of a parent as mom can trope? It's 2018, people. They've been doing this crap since Mr. Mom. This movie taking place right after the first film makes it feel like these characters have regressed since the first film, which doesn't make sense because it's literally seconds after the first film ends. Mr. Incredible still has trouble doing what he needs to for his family. He really wants to go out and be a super again. Violet still has confidence issues. She still has boy issues. Then characters like Dash, who had a great story arc in the first film, fall by the wayside with nothing to do. This film just feels so much weaker than the first film, which I regard as one of the greatest movies of all time. Everything in that film just works perfectly. It has amazing action, a great score, a compelling villain. It's perfectly paced and deals with things like a disintegrating marriage, hero worship, struggling to maintain a family and work life, the use of technology, the importance of family, and the ethics of superpowers. This sequel had amazing action, I will give it that. This movie isn't bad by any means. The action, like I said, is amazing. So many great action set pieces, especially the ones involving Elastigirl. The movie makes great creative uses of the super's powers, how well they interact with each other. Brad Bird is also great at creating tension, like one particular scene where Elastigirl breaks into the bad guy's hideout and the bad guy kind of stalks her a little bit. It's lit like a scene in a Batman movie. Great lighting, great staging of the characters, you always know what's happening in the action scenes, and of course top-notch animation from Pixar, who continually outdo themselves every movie. Especially with the hair in this movie, with Mr. Incredible's stubble, Jack's growing baby hair. Jack is the scene stealer in this movie. Everything with him and his new growing powers is amazing. From his fight with the raccoon to his interactions with Edna Mode. Thankfully they don't push his cuteness to over-the-top levels like a minion. Because this is a sequel, they repeat a lot from the first movie, even disregarding the plot like I mentioned earlier. Jack has new powers. Frozen has an overbearing wife. Edna Mode is eccentric. There's a superhero fashion show. There's a surprise villain reveal. The surprise villain is probably the weakest part of this movie, and it's not a spoiler saying there's a surprise villain because you can guess it almost immediately as soon as you see this character. Oh, here's this character who doesn't have a lot to do. I wonder why they're even in this movie. Oh, they're the villain? Okay, I didn't see that one coming. It's becoming such a cliche at this point. Why can't a villain just be a villain? Plus the villain has some weak motivation and a very weak plan compared to the amazingness that was Syndrome from the first Incredibles. So while I am glad that we got another adventure from the Incredibles, I doubt I would have missed it if they hadn't made this sequel. It's an enjoyable watch, but this movie just feels like filler. It has some captivating stuff and it has amazing action that rivals the first movie. If you do make another sequel, please make it before I'm 70 and even more cynical than I am now. Bye.